Friends, hope you are doing well, and welcome on in. It is a Wednesday, February 11th of 2026. Today, cloudy, cooler, and a high of 54. Joan, we do have a programming alert.
Oh, yeah?
Make an appointment if you would. District 10 Metro Council member Jennifer Webb will be joining us on Super Talk 99.7 to talk about her reaction to NES defending themselves in last night's 4-hour meeting as they talked about the failures of NES to keep the power on during the last ice storm. So
nice get, Dan.
Well, thank you, Joan. You know, whatever I could do to, inform the good people of Tennessee, that's what I aim to do every single morning. And so that's going to be at 6:35 here on Super Talk 99.7. Can I ask a question,
Sure.
Joan and Sam? Is the cold and the snow over with now?
I think for the most part.
We're 2 weeks to March.
Right. So I think so. I was looking at this yesterday. We're like in the 50s for the next while.
Yes.
Which is kind of nice.
Yep.
And, the nights won't be terribly cold.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, let's see. The National Weather Service says today is like 55, and then 54 will go to 61, 58, 64, 70, 72, 71. So, yeah, we're pushing higher now.
Okay, very good. By the way, Daily Dan poll, real quick. If I could, Sam, there is a move. I don't know if you've heard this, but there is a move to ban statewide property taxes in the state of Tennessee. Now, you have to listen close. Statewide property taxes in the state of Tennessee. So you have, districts, if you will, or counties that have their property taxes. But in the state of Tennessee, believe it or not, it is still on the books in the state's constitution that if they decided that they wanted to come back and implement a statewide property tax, they could do it. And so now the governor, and I'm assuming the Republicans in the state legislature, they are now wanting people to vote as to whether or not they want the ability for the state government to be able to implement a statewide property tax through a campaign called Yes on 2. So what Yes on 2 would do is it would basically eliminate any possibility ever in the future of the state implementing a statewide property tax. And so if we could, Sam, yes or no, would you vote yes on 2? It's going to be a big campaign that's going on till November. So just a very quick history. Back in 1949, the state of Tennessee eliminated the state property tax and replaced it with more of a sales tax-based system. It's always been that way. Need some audio if I could. Now, obviously, again, we do have property taxes at the county level, but it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. You could have state property taxes implemented as well as local property taxes as well. Governor Lee has put out a video.
As governor, I've worked to ensure that you can keep your hard-earned money in your pocket. In Tennessee, we keep our economy strong, and we spend within our means to keep your taxes low. We even passed the largest tax cut in state history. I'd never support a statewide property tax. But right now, the law allows it, and we should change that.
Yeah, he is going to be at the forefront of the Yes on 2 campaign this November. Now, some people are saying that this campaign is not smart, that the state always should leave its options open as far as ways to make money. People are saying that this Yes on 2 campaign is a solution in search of a problem as well, saying that there is no way that our conservative state legislature would actually approve a statewide property tax. But it is worth noting that back during the old horn honking days of the Tennessee tax revolt, the Tennessee governor at the time was a Republican, Don Sundquist, who was working with Democrats in the state legislature to enact a state income tax. So it was a Republican governor who was working with the Democrats in the state legislature to bring a state income tax. And so to me, this makes all the sense in the world. A vote on Yes on 2, and I'm not advocating, for it, if you will, but I mean, it just makes sense to me. Voting Yes on 2 means that there will be no real way for the state legislature to implement a statewide property tax. So, yes, this has been on the books since 1949 that we have eliminated the statewide property tax, but they can always, as it stands right now, they can always go back and change that. Here's more from Governor Lee.
A statewide property tax would devastate homeowners and family farms and small businesses all across Tennessee. Property is already taxed by your local government. You should never be double taxed by collecting at the state level, too. And that's why this November, I'll be voting yes on Amendment 2 to ban a statewide property tax in Tennessee. And I hope that you'll join me.
Yeah, so this Yes on 2 movement will be a constitutional amendment that will be voted on by the people of Tennessee in November. It is interesting, if you think about it, the very left-leaning Davidson County keeps having their property taxes raised while still having schools that are, quite frankly, a complete mess. A Metro School Board leader in Dr. Adrian Battle. She's got, of course, as we all know, famously a plush new bathroom in her office. And she has also cost the district millions of dollars in lawsuits. Well, that money comes from property taxes. So really, the Republicans are protecting everyone, including those Democrats in Shelby and Davidson County, from paying more in property taxes. Now, you do have, again, some folks that are saying that this should not be passed by the people of Tennessee because it will not give us future flexibility in case the state needs to bring in more revenue. But my point would be this, that the state then, conversely, needs to be sure not to mismanage our funds, because double taxing our property should never be an option. That's my official talk show host take. By the way, there are other states that do a version of double dipping, of double taxing on property. But as far as I can tell, there is not a state out there. And by the way, all of those states that do a version of double taxing, usually there's a property tax and then there is another tax that specifically taxes property owners for schools. So there is a version of double taxing out there. But as far as I can tell, there isn't a state that purely does a full double dipping of property taxes at the state and local level. But, you know, Bill Lee says this is not going to happen in the state of Tennessee.
Together, we can ensure a statewide property tax never takes hard-earned dollars away from Tennesseans.
By the way, to get this on the November ballot, just some nuts and bolts state legislative stuff, it has to pass the state legislature not once, but twice. So it's already done that. And we've talked to Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson on this before. But to get this kind of a thing on the November ballot so the people of Tennessee could vote on it, it does have to pass the state legislature twice. It has done that. Polling has also showed that roughly 2/3 of all Tennesseans believe that this should pass, that the state legislature should never be able to double dip at the state level when it comes to property taxes. We've already, of course, as you folks know, banned the state income tax way back when in 2014. Now we'll do the same thing here. By the way, another thing is it is backed, this Yes on 2, it is backed by the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce, Tennessee Realtors, and others. So some people, and I do understand this, some people are suspicious of all of this because they say that this will benefit those big-time, organizations more than the people of Tennessee. But as far as I can tell, this will actually benefit everyone, Democrats, Republicans, moderates, independents, whatever, if they are homeowners. Now, the only people that I can see who would not necessarily like this are people, and you folks correct me if I'm wrong on this, but are the people who actually are not property owners. Because if the state needs to, for whatever reason, raise revenue, then the only option, one of the only options they may have is to raise sales taxes. Well, that would impact the people who obviously don't own homes, but they would have to pay higher sales taxes. If that happened, then the people who don't own homes would be like, listen, why don't you just raise property taxes at the state level? Why am I, as a non-homeowner, having to pay more sales taxes? So this is going to be a debate that we'll all be having. But as far as I can tell right now, the majority of people are wary of a state legislature that does still have the opportunity to raise property taxes at the state level. Friends, hope you are doing well. Super text line very active this morning. Thank you. 615-737-9986. It does help the host's very fragile ego when I get a lot of
very
feedback.
Fragile.
Very, very fragile ego. So keep the love coming on the super text line, 615-737-9986. Want to welcome on into the program. District 10 Council Member Jennifer Webb is joining us here on Super Talk 99.7. Jennifer, thank you for being here. I want to play for you a piece of audio. This was your fellow council member, Sepulveda, and she had this to say about NES.
I heard a lot of patting on the back during this meeting, and the reality is that our leadership failed throughout the storm, and it has been failing throughout many storms. I don't understand how we continue to be in this position given the amount of storms that we have had in this city since I began the council term. You know, it's been back-to-back disasters in this city. It's like we are built on native land or something.
So that is Council Member Sepulveda. Jennifer, earlier we were playing some audio from last night. Did it really go 4 hours that NES was in there and they're talking about the failures of the ice storm?
It did go 4 hours, and I don't really think we got much accomplished. I think it was a very flat meeting.
So talk about that, because I actually spent some time, considerable amount of time actually, listening to the YouTube feed of this, and it just sounded like they were, as Sepulveda said, and you just said, doesn't really seem like much was accomplished, almost like they were reading from their own press releases.
Actually, that's exactly what, I felt like. I felt like they were all queued up. They sort of had, it was more about PR for them and not answering our questions and being accountable for what happened. I was hoping it would just be a one-on-one NES meeting, leave the metro departments out of it, because the catastrophic side of it came from NES, not our metro departments.
So what's the next step? I know that 4 hours and not feeling like nothing really was accomplished. I mean, everybody had, or not, I don't know if everybody did, I didn't see the whole thing, but were they willing to, at the very least, acknowledge that they did make some mistakes and somehow they'll be held accountable for it?
I think they acknowledge that they made mistakes and they think they're going to learn from them and move on. But as far as accountability, no, I don't think anybody said, okay, I am the one accountable for what happened. And I think we've got to hold somebody accountable. Somebody's got to be replaced, removed. It'd be different if it only was one thing that did not go right for NES, but it was everything that did not go right, from clearing the trees to getting the linemen out quick to communication. It was everything. They were so unprepared.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was like a catastrophic amount of errors, and I wasn't joking about it, but I mean, is there anything that didn't glitch? Because on, I think it was Monday, there was the story that their website glitched, and that there were people that are trying to get their power back on, and their website is saying their power was back on. And so you had the $250 million text messaging system that failed, the website glitching as well. There was the very poor decision making as well. I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask you, but I realize now that it's an unfair question, but what is the one thing, if you could name one of all of these failures, is there one catastrophic error that they made? It feels like there's at least several.
No, I don't think there's one catastrophic. I think the main catastrophic area that they made to hampering it was not having a process and a plan to implement for the worst case scenario. I think they focused on a scenario. You're supposed to plan for the worst and hope for the best. I think they planned for the best and we got the worst. And I think that's the area nothing went right for them, nothing that they did, and no disrespect to them. I don't know any of them personally, but I have been a leader all my life, and all I can tell you is if I had failed Nashville like that, I personally would hopefully be resigning on my own.
See, you would think, and listeners have heard me say this a number of times now, but you would think that with the failures that we've seen, from the not cutting down of the trees to not having enough engineers and the linemen, and the failures of the text messaging system, any decent person, maybe it's unfair, but I just feel like any person, knowing how badly they failed, would resign in disgrace so that the city could move on and really figure out how to move forward. Are you confident in this particular board and this particular, CEO and the people that are at the top? Are you confident that if they keep their jobs, they would be able to learn from these mistakes and implement the changes? Do you think that if this current crop of people on the board remain in place, could they truly learn from these mistakes and implement the changes that need to be made?
Absolutely not. I think they're different kind of leaders, and I've heard nothing but great things from Teresa as far as a people person and the people having respect for her. But at the end of the day, you have to be a doer. You have to be a strategic person, and I think, to me, I think Teresa, based on what I'm seeing, is a little maybe disconnected what was really going on at NES from a strategic plan with Brent and maybe the engineers, and she put too much focus on what they were. She didn't know enough about the plan that they had planned for, and I think at that point you have to be held accountable.
You do, and that leads to one of my next questions about investigations, and also there have been some folks that have been talking about whether or not the state legislature, I realize you're from the Metro Council, but the state legislature taking over some oversight of NES. We're going to talk about that straight ahead with Jennifer Webb, District 10. I want to make sure that I have everything right. We've got Freddie O'Connell's commission that is going to investigate NES. You're talking about two members, I guess, from the Metro Council, another 7 that will be from the NES, from the mayor's the mayor's office will be appointing them. So, I mean, how confident are you that Mayor Freddie O'Connell's council will be able to, or commission will be able to look at the mistakes that NES has made? Because I think Freddie O'Connell himself has to be investigated.
Well, at the end of the day, he's our mayor and he's responsible. And do I think they're confident enough? Absolutely not. Just based on 2 people that he chose from the council, if I had been Freddie, I probably would have chose somebody, far different, a nonpartisan group, to say, okay, well, at least he's trying to understand that this is not partisan. This is about suffering for human people, and we all suffered the same way, whether we were an illegal immigrant or whether we were a Republican, a Democrat, it doesn't matter. We all were suffering the same way. And that commission should have been made up and should be made up of people from all walks of life and all different backgrounds, so we really get to the truth. At the end of the day, if you're going to fill it with people that we've been filling the board and commission with, we're not going to get to the truth.
Well, and the other I just laughed at this. And by the way, just to clarify, I think I shanked it earlier. 2 of the people on the mayor's commission are from the council. 7 will be appointed from the mayor's office. NES, they have their own investigation going on. I would assume that you have even less confidence in NES being able to investigate themselves.
Well, the way that I understand it from the meeting last night, this person's not going to know anybody. But at the end of the day, I think the council, I think Courtney said it a lot, Johnston said it, I think we ought to see the contracts. We ought to be able to decide what independent auditor we want to go in there and review it.
Absolutely. All right, last question here. What do you think about the state legislature having some oversight of NES, if they can figure out how to do it legally?
You know what? I would hate to see that happen. I feel like I don't think the state ought to have all the power. I think I'm a Republican, and I see a lot of things they do, and I appreciate what they do, and I think they do a lot of great things for Nashville. But at the end of the day, we as leaders of this city ought to be good enough leaders, if the right people are in the right places, not to have state takeover when things go wrong. If I was mayor and I was Freddie O'Connell and I did not want that to happen, I would be making the 3 top people at NES resign and changing the board ASAP so that doesn't happen. But I don't think he's going to move on that.
All right, Jennifer Webb, thank you very much for joining us here on Nashville's Morning News and Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And there's a lot there. And I think that I agree with, I didn't have to sit through the whole 4-hour thing like Jennifer did, but there was a lot of patting on the back, and unjustifiably so, by NES. That's number one. Number two, it did literally feel, Joan, I know that you've seen these kinds of things where it sounds like they're literally reading from their press releases.
Yeah. It's a CYA moment.
Oh, it's absolutely. They're not going to admit to anything. They're not going to, really admit to any wrongdoing. And I totally agree with Jennifer when she says that this is not the team at NES to be able to figure out what went wrong and then implement the necessary changes.
Right. There's no, I don't think there's any confidence that that'll happen.
No, no confidence whatsoever. So the phone number, super text line is on fire this morning. Thank you. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. By the way, are we on YouTube today? We're on YouTube, all that stuff working today?
I mean, as best as it can.
I mean, let's be honest, Joan. We're day to day with the online streaming. So
I'm surprised to hear. I think it's more like minute to minute.
Yeah.
Sometimes I cringe when I see like Sam put the picture of that woman Jennifer Webb up, and I think, oh my gosh, it's going to make everything crash.
Yeah, because
it's like this
fragile.
computer's in hospice care.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
It could go at any moment.
It could go. Because the point is, the more graphics we put up, the less the computer can handle. I hate to do this, but I mean, we were joking about how there's no editing equipment on the video editing equipment on the computer.
Yeah.
We're at the point now where we're afraid to put up a picture.
It's really pretty sad.
I mean, at least make it hard. All right. Just stop it. Anyway, so the other thing that I would say is, you threw me off my train of thought, Sam. The other thing that I would say is that, Brian Wilson is coming up at 7. He does have some perspective on what is going on in El Paso and all of that. So, looking forward to that. And they're rebuilding. That's the point. They're rebuilding our computer. So hopefully, once they rebuild the computer, as opposed to ordering a new one, once they rebuild the computer, I'm sure that it'll all be just fine.